So, Coolnomics, the economic theory. Let's recap the fundamentals. So cool is what resonates. Cool is actually a political term. I'm going to be speaking to a guest in a couple of weeks about the origins of the term cool itself on an etymological level. But cool in its most simple form is what resonates, something that resonates between two human beings or more. Then we have the nomics, which is the way that value or money moves through a system, which means we arrive at the economics of cool, the absolute flashpoint where the cultural zeitgeist or cool, sticky, what's interesting and important to society at that point in time, how that shows up in the economy. And if we can understand how those two sides of that coin work better, we can do better work that is good for the world, relevant, enriching, as well as being lucrative and economically or commercially successful. I've seen it across my career. We've all seen it out there in the world a million times. And tonight we're going to break down some famous examples of it, as well as some examples that I've actually been working on with some of our Super Aura clients to show you how we've laddered up in real time with a recent brand we've brought to market. So Coolnomics began as an economic theory in late 2023. It was going to be a PhD, but then I felt that it was much better to be a public research project, which here we are today, outside the walls of academia and enriching our peers and colleagues and broader community and some of the ideas that are relevant to all of us. It explores the relationship between culture and economics, and it's designed to create more of what the world wants now and in the future. So the Coolnomics principles, there are 5 of them. We've got the first three principles are the cool, the resonance and the culture side of the picture. Things need to be culturally relevant, emotionally intelligent or emotionally potent, and authentic and credible to the people or person or business or brand that is developing that idea. There needs to be an alignment between the source of the idea and the outcome of the idea, giving it credibility and authenticity to what it represents. And then we've got the nomics side of the picture, which is money and value, the way that those things move through a system. With the 4th principle being commercial viability, which is really could be an MBA in itself, that full vertical. How to maximize profit, how to scale product suites and deliver products to the market in the most commercially capable way. And then finally, if we're here going to be spending so much time unpacking how to build really great things for the world, let's make sure that we're moving in the direction of regenerative and sustainable. If we're going to be relevant to where the world is at now in terms of climate change, geopolitical changes, of course we need to be considering, and I think the zeitgeist wants things to be more regenerative and sustainable. So we're going to be unpacking these 5 principles across these 5 weeks. Tonight we're unpacking cultural relevance. But before I get into cultural relevance, I want to talk to you about a new tool that I'm going to introduce to you tonight. I'm adding little tools into your toolkit each week. We're going to unpack the resonance equation. Okay, the resonance equation is made up of the first 3 principles. Something needs to be relevant. It speaks to the moment and needs of the time. It meets a real need. So it's both has a practical purpose, as well as a spirit or a mood or an emotional alignment with what matters to people. We want to engage emotions. We want to create things that make people feel something, feel like they belong, feel urgency, feel joy, feel relief. Belonging is always a really big one. We want emotional engagement. If we can open up someone's heart, we have the ability to impact them, influence them, get them to change a behavior, adopt a new behavior. Emotions are the gateway. Let's not be afraid of them. Let's build our intelligence in the space of emotions. And finally, credibility. It feels logical and trustworthy that this thing, this idea, this product, this brand, this business is coming from that person or those people. It makes sense. It's logical. It's unquestionable. If we get those 3 things right, we arrive at resonance. Okay, let's look at some examples, some famous examples. Let's apply this equation to 3 famous examples. If we get resonance right, we can deliver social and commercial value, momentum, a really big one that I see in our work as business strategists, and trust. Okay, our first example, Lego, famous, educational toys, large, colorful, primary colors, an incredibly scalable commercial model. But let's talk about the relevance or the resonance side of things first. How is Lego relevant, or what have they built into their model to make them relevant? So it stays relevant. And also something I want to make really want to call out for us. relevance and resonance needs to be built into the business model itself. It can't be tacked on at the end by the marketing team or the social team. If you want true commercial outcomes, true scaling, if you want to leverage the world around you and the movements of the zeitgeist in the economy, it needs to be built into the actual model of the business. And that's how we're kind of different here at Coolnomics. We're not here just talking about marketing. I've got an MBA and I always operate on the level of the business itself. And then that thinking filters down into what are we doing with the product, the technology, the HR decisions, the operational decisions, and the marketing decisions. So Lego. Relevance is built into the product at the very core. It's teaching people, children right through to adults, how to solve problems, how to learn new things. It's hands-on, it's tactile, it connects generations. It's visually rich and striking and distinct. It's emotional. Again, that color theory element that I just mentioned helps to evoke feelings of pride and joy and engagement, stimulation for the mind. It evokes nostalgia and imagination. It's tangible and rewarding, cathartic. They are powerful, potent emotions. If we can make someone feel cathartic through the product that we deliver to them, how stunning. How stunning to give them a human experience that delivers catharsis or reward or satisfaction, and that we then have a relationship with those people because we've created a through line that created a memory and was emotive, memorable. And then finally, credibility. Lego is trustworthy, consistent, high quality, and credible. And which is pretty impressive when you've got such a global brand to be so consistent in its delivery. I mean, also consistent in terms of stepping on a Lego and hurting your foot. I think any dad in the room and mum could relate to that, consistent and credible, even in that way. So I think this is a really nice way of considering how is Lego resonant and why is Lego resonant. Okay, next example, let's have a look at Netflix. So I did mention this last week. Let's unpack it further. What makes Netflix resonant? So again, on the actual model level, Netflix has been built as a content engine. It can producing their own content as well as using algorithms to deliver content, recommended content to people as they're flicking through. They can update the content on the platform in line with the zeitgeist, in line with the needs, in line with the desires and the interests and the mood of the time in the world. And it's a beautiful example of technology being used to deliver relevance in a split second. And yes, of course, there would be critique in this room this evening in terms of, well, I'm always on Netflix and I can't find anything to watch. Yeah, I know, I find the same thing. We're not saying that these businesses or brands are perfect. We could easily apply a critical lens as well, but we are applying a Coolnomics lens to talk about what they do well this evening. We tend to work more with looking at what's working well with a business rather than amplifying through outrage what we think is wrong with them. I think there's plenty of critique going out there in the space. We're interested in building ideas that are productive and using critical thought in an appropriate way. Okay, Netflix, of course, it's content, it's storytelling, it's film and cinema evoking emotions, memories, and connection to other cultural territories. Documentaries, comedies, dramas, political movies. You've got so much emotion. Netflix is an entire ecosystem of emotion waiting to be evoked by the user. And the credibility. Netflix is quite a beautiful business in terms of its aesthetics and its consistent delivery. I mean, the old creative director from Netflix went on to build the brand Liquid Death that I spoke about last week, which again has very high grade aesthetics, very cinematic outputs in terms of their marketing and visual delivery to market. And also by creating their own content from scratch, Netflix Originals deepens their credibility as well, actually enables them to make a mark on the ground in terms of what they stand for, what stories they want to amplify in the world. So credibility is about depth and dimension and making a mark and holding steady, holding firm on that position and taking it all the way to deliver trust and respect in the market. Okay, finally, let's look at Apple. So we've gone really global with these ideas. We've got some smaller business ones that we'll unpack in a moment. So what makes Apple resonate? So Apple is relevant to the market, a little bit similar to a Lego in that Apple delivers products that you can create things with. You can create a conversation, you can create an Adobe Photoshop file, you can create a Premiere Pro file. You can create a Canva document in your browser. The whole positioning of Apple is to think different, to do things differently, to create things that haven't existed before. Originality, to be pioneering, is part of the relevant cultural territories that connect people to Apple. Of course, in this space, we have a lot of emotions, again, at our fingertips. Do you see how the equation, when we apply it to these three examples, you're starting to see some universal values or rules or plays, we might call it in business. Like, okay, how can I make this more emotionally potent would be a brush that I would apply to any business that I'm working on. It might be something you might want to consider. How do I make something richer, deeper, more relevant? And so Apple, again, if we're engaging with people's creativity, we're going to be evoking emotions that are rich, aspirational, delightful, and then even intuitive. Using a computer and the computer feels like it gets you, knows you, likes you, wants you to use it. That is emotional. That is great UX. That is great intuitive design. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by crossing over into that human frontier and really unpacking, how do I make something feel wonderful for the user? That can be the objective. And then finally, of course, the credibility of Apple. It's a hugely global scale conglomerate business that is, privacy and security are really paramount. Again, the actual originality and the design in the hardware and the software is credible to the vision of Steve Jobs. And then even the story of Steve Jobs, the founder story, being so famous and so distinct and uncompromising, still feeds into the feeling of that brand today. And then even the complexity of Steve Jobs' reputation and some of the not so pretty parts of his personality. You've got to balance and navigate when you've got a founder story, what's going to happen if that founder isn't perfect. Yeah, that's part of running a modern business, and be able to maintain credibility while holding space around the undulations of what a human can be. Okay, 3 examples for our resonance equation. How's everyone feeling? How's it going? How are things looking? I won't actually open up my chat. That would, okay, all good. All right. And our time, 7:20 on the dot. I think I was supposed to start at 7:20. That's good. Okay. All right, let's get into the lecture for this evening. So, principle 1, we've now spoken about the overarching idea of the resonance equation for the first 3 principles: relevance, emotions, credibility. Let's drill down into number 1 in more depth: cultural relevance. So, what is culture? Let's take a step back. Everybody, take a step back. I think we get lost on what culture is. I was working on a brand a couple of years ago that was very much a cultural brand. I'd been brought in as their head of marketing to develop that brand from scratch as a culture brand. And when I presented some of the thinking around that brand strategy initially, there were questions around, do we want to be a cultural brand? What does it even mean? And I really had to do some work in terms of understanding and taking our team on the journey of what is culture. Culture is not necessarily arts. Culture is not necessarily TV. They are expressions of culture. What culture is on the most fundamental level is 3 things, is how you can remember it. Culture is the fabric of society, what we do with our time, what we choose to buy, what values we align with. Think back to cave drawings, to the most ancient form of culture is what we do. How do we express what matters to us? And then how does that make us who we are? So identity. Culture is what we do that makes us who we are. And that's going to create cultivation. So the etymology of the word culture is to cultivate things, to nurture things, to make things become real from the inner of the human to the external of the community. And then finally, what we do that makes us who we are, that connects us with other people, is what culture fully is. So that is the connection point. That's when it becomes a fabric, a web that holds all of us together. We have a global culture, then we have national cultures, then we have local cultures, then we have cultures within our niches and sub-niches and subcultures. We have a culture within our friendship group. We have a culture within our family. What do we continue to do? What do we continue to do that makes us who we are, and how does it connect us to each other? And what parts of that are good and what parts of that could be better? What language do we use? What decisions do we make? What do we do that makes us who we are, that connects us to other people? Let's really get clear on that. So therefore, the question becomes, how do we do things that are culturally relevant? Relevance being relational. This thing makes me feel like me now is the ultimate outcome. So I've set up a formula for you that's in 4 parts. I'm going to give you a quick formula this evening for you to move in the direction of building things that are more culturally relevant. Step 1, we're going to map the cultural territories, and I'm going to give you examples of how to do this. Step 2, we're going to get a feel for the zeitgeist. We're going to use a tool called the Zeitgeist Radar, and we're going to get a feel for the spirit of the time, what's interesting to those people within those cultural territories, what are they thinking, feeling, doing, and being. Then we'd start to develop up ideas. By doing steps 1 and 2, we get a good feel for the human beings that we're trying to connect our product or idea with. Once we've got a good feel for that, we'll start to naturally see ideas emerging and strategic options. And then we're going to take those ideas and we're going to test them in the market. We're going to test them with our peers. We're going to test them with our board. We're going to test them with focus groups. We're going to, often the best way is to test it with the market and see what sticks, see what people say. That can often be the fastest way to getting to exactly the right thing that will hit. And you iterate. You take one version out and then you iterate it. You know, Seth Godin, a famous marketing author, always talks about just ship it, right? So that's part of his ideology or fundamental of just ship it, get it out there, and the market will tell you very quickly what it likes and what it doesn't like. Okay, let's start to break it down into an actionable form. And I'm going to use an example this evening of a brand that we're literally launching in market right now. It's called Nalu. It's a really beautiful Gumbaynggirr and Bundjalung design house located in northern New South Wales, and it's founded by an incredible and well-known Indigenous artist and surfer called Otis Hope Carey, and his partner Sophie Willing, who was a model, is also a business leader, a real it girl of the early 2000s. This couple are so talented, so committed, beautiful artistry, so much depth, so much credibility. It's been a real joy to work with them. So they brought us in to do their business strategy, a 5-year business strategy for this brand, for this design house. And now we're working with them on the actual brand direction, the creative direction of the look and feel and words that we're using to take to market. And we're getting incredible traction in terms of our social media already. We haven't even launched the actual product, and incredible traction in terms of media coverage in the kinds of mastheads that we wrote in the strategy where our objectives to hit. So let's talk about how did we start from scratch. Earlier this year when we first started to work with Nalu, and by the way, their first collection are these beautiful soft tapestries, these huge oversized soft tapestries that feature Otis's artworks on them, aligned with a poem, and they represent Otis's childhood memories of Nalu, Nalu being Gumbaynggirr for water, and his memories around water and his stories as a surfer, all coming together into a high aesthetic landscape. So here's the exercise that I undertook with this brand before we got to where we are now, where it's tangible and real and about to make money in market. Here's how we started. I went, okay, we've got a product. We've got these blankets, we've got furniture, we've got homewares, we've got objects, lighting, all the beautiful things that they plan to produce and deliver to market in the next 5 years. Okay, products of that nature. All right, then we've got these people over here, which is the market. And also you can apply this. It might not be a product, it might be a policy that you're writing, and you've got a bunch of citizens over here that you need to get to change their behaviors or adopt this new policy. So you can actually apply this whether there's money involved or not. This is all about relevance in whatever the setting that might be. So you've got a product over here and you've got people over here. How are we going to join those two together? We're going to start mapping it. So let's start mapping some cultural territories. So these words inside the circles are cultural territories. Okay, well, I know that I've got surfing and countercultures to work with. Surfers often have tattoos, surfers and skateboarders, any sort of culture movement in society that is countering to the culture. It's got rebellion and punk with it. Okay, that's a little marker to know about there and what would be relevant there. It's a family-owned business. We've got the mum and dad and their 2 kids. It's part of their lineage and giving back to community. Okay, people who are interested in families and family values will be relevant here. People who are either First Nations, who have an appreciation for First Nations art and culture. Okay, that would be relevant in terms of territories and things that would connect the people who are into this product. These are things they might also be into. Okay, they would probably be into nature. Also, Otis has done quite a lot of collaborations with brands like Louis Vuitton and Christian Louboutin, Longines, etc. So there is a whole luxury element, people who appreciate high aesthetic, high quality, premium products. Okay, and then a couple more territories might be people who are interested in contemporary art and appreciate and understand it's part of their culture. Contemporary art is something that they do. And then also architecture and interiors. These are beautiful, large artworks, blankets or tapestries that can be hung as artworks that would look beautiful in beautiful homes in Byron Bay. Okay, these are sort of territories that I would need to be considering when we write that business strategy to make sure that we are hitting at a median point that would make sense to people who are in those spaces. It's got to be high quality. It's got to be a little bit edgy. It's got to be really deep and sacred. It needs to have some wholesomeness and warmth of the family element and the epicness and the beauty of nature. Okay. What next? Oh, sorry, excuse me. There were two more final territories. Of course, the fashion angle with Sophie's background, also Otis's recent collaborations. And also, I reckon there's a little bit of an angle of feminism as well. And that's part of getting to know the founders of a business and knowing their story. And Sophie is a really powerful woman. And I really think that there's an element of equality and justice and empowerment in this story as well to ensure we capture in the narrative and the brand building. Okay, so that was the first mapping of the territories. Step 2. Zeitgeist radar. So now we need to get a feel for the spirit of the time for the people who are operating within those territories. So let's remind ourselves of the meaning of the word zeitgeist. Zeit, it's a German word, Zeit meaning time, Geist meaning spirit. It's the time spirit. It's the spirit of the time. And now we can see the spirit of the time in the data in terms of what people are spending money on. We can see it in the economy. We can see it in social media comments. And you're also going to learn more and more across your career how to get a gut feel for the spirit of the time. That's when true originality starts to come through of like, oh, I'm seeing a little signal there. I'm seeing something interesting that could be relevant to what we want to bring into the world that we could leverage and relate to, that relate to other people, that create stickiness and magnetism around the new thing that we're bringing into it. Okay, so the Zeitgeist radar as a tool. Let's look at it in terms of Nalu again. So we're going to take each of the territories and let's choose surfing, for example. And we're going to apply our pulse finding and our signal tracking structure, which is the people within the surfing territory. What are they thinking? And it's what are they thinking now in this spirit of the time? People who are surfing, what are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? Actively, practically, where are they surfing? What kind of surfboards are they buying? What's going on with the swell? What's going on with surf culture? And then how are they being? What is the feeling in their spirit? What matters to them? If you do a breakdown like that, get into the minds and hearts using empathy as a tool to understand the spirit of the time for the people within the surfing territory. And then you also do it for people in the luxury territory. If you go back to that territory mapping that we did, the luxury territory, people who are in the First Nations community, people who are in the architecture and interiors territory, people who are interested in nature. What are all of those people thinking, feeling, doing, and being? This might sound like a big exercise, but it's only like a couple of hours an exercise to do that maps an entire landscape of potential for you to relate your product to start to see magical sticky points show up when you bring the two together. So now let's consider this like it's 2 layers. You've got your territories mapped, and then you're applying the fabric of the zeitgeist. What are all these people thinking, feeling, doing, and being? And very naturally, you'll start to see some universal sticky points or resonance pulses show up across that landscape. Oh, people with families are also relating to this particular thing that people in nature are into. Oh, also surfers are interested in this particular thing that's relevant to the contemporary art world or the feminism world. And you'll start to see, there's a magic bit here, you'll start to see some original ideas that start to come through, and that's when you'll start to develop strategies and ideas that are relevant to the world, that are resonant and sticky and undeniable. Which brings us to, actually, it brings us to creating a cultural hit that I'm going to talk to in a moment. But I want to give you another example, right? Now, this is whiplash a little bit, so just let's go slow. We're going to talk about a major electrical brand. Do you know if we've got Charisse on the chat this evening? If we do, Charisse, drop a comment in the chat because I've developed this just for you. This is a Gen Z marketer, a friend of mine, who was asking me, who watched last week's episode and was asking, yeah, I was thinking about how I could bring your ideas of Coolnomics into what I'm doing at Schneider Electrical. Schneider Electrical are global, multinational, selling electrical engineering parts, switches and codes and circuitry and wiring, and wholesale, B2B. Charisse is there. Okay, amazing. Hi, Charisse. Welcome. So maybe not traditionally cool, but this is what we're part of the beauty of Coolnomics is breaking down the fact that the old idea of cool was quite flimsy, right? Cool was skateboarders, Vice magazine, Rick Owens, a very particular view of what cool is. And my proposition to you is that cool is relative to the context. So for example, people who are into Warhammer, I don't know if you know it, but it's little figurines, playing games and war. It's an incredible business model. It's books, it's video games, it's figurines, it's all the parts for the figurines. It's an incredible commercial model. Warhammer is cool to those people. People who are into Star Wars, people who are into Star Trek. That is cool to those people. It resonates with them. It is relevant. So cool is relative to the people that we're speaking to. So I just did a very quick skim here. And Charisse, let's see if we can do this live a little bit together, see if the delay doesn't get in the way with our chat. I put together a couple of territories. I'm not even going more deeply into this product vertical. This is for Charisse, can pick this up and run with it. But the idea was, how can we build a marketing program for her work at Schneider to engage the wholesalers that she is selling parts to, that will engage them and teach them about the products, so then they're more likely to, and they are enabled to sell those products to their end consumer. I thought, okay, what's relevant to these people? And don't mind me, I'm not meaning to be stereotypical of if they work in this particular area, they're interested in these things. That's why I've got a few question marks, because I don't want to be stereotyping. This is how you create demographics. I was like, okay, well, if they work for an electrical engineering company, they're probably into electronics. They're probably into pop culture. You could probably say that with most groups. Are they into gaming? Perhaps. I believe also the demographic skew is more male. So I'm sort of making some assumptions here. Let's see what else we've done. I thought, okay, if they're into electronics, they're probably into engineering, which maybe they're into aviation, maybe they're into space, maybe they're into science fiction. I don't know. Charisse would be able to answer this for me. And then even, again, as a marketer, you start to build these fundamentals of like, okay, well, what kinds of foods, do we have any food correlation? What foods are these sorts of people eating? Is it relevant or not? It might not be. You might do a mapping on foods and find that, no, that's too varied in this group. There's nothing sticky or sort of consistent there to work with. But then I was like, okay, if it's a strong male skew, is this demographic into cars? Yes, no. If they're into cars, what kinds of cars? Okay, cool. And then also sports. Are these people into sports? What kinds of sports? When, how, what? This is very quick without me even knowing this product well. These would be some of the standard questions I would be asking, and then you go deeper and deeper into it. So into our chat, sorry, team, I've taken the chat off mine so I don't get distracted by it. But Fee, what is Charisse saying? Sorry.
General home repairs, like fix it kind of guys.
Oh yeah, fix it kind of guys, home improvements. Okay, amazing. All right, Charisse, that is a first slice through, right? Just a few territories. And then we would do, what's my next slide?